Okay, so recording has started. And once again, good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining. Disclaimer, this call is being recorded and we place our recordings on our YouTube channel. So if you are not comfortable, please drop off now. And here is with our topic of today, Azure Container Instances Update. Um, and here is a quick agenda. Give me 1 second. We're gonna do like a quick 1-2 minutes overview of what Azure Container Instances are, and then we will talk about updates around VNet integration and network isolation. Of course, most of the time will be spent in the demo. Okay, so with that, um, so Azure Container Instances is a quick and easy way to deploy a container in the cloud. You just need your image, you can deploy the container, and that's it. You don't need any infrastructure, you don't need any VM, you don't need any AKS infrastructure or anything. It's just a quick way of deploying your container to address scenarios where you want to do like a quick run a quick task or process something quickly without spinning up a VM. That's the way to do it. And we will briefly talk about some of the use cases that are addressed by ACI. And just want to clarify something. If you need container orchestration, AKS is still the best way to do it. You know, using managed Kubernetes or AKS, it's still the best way to do it. ACIs is for certain use cases, and we will talk about it throughout this session. But as disclaimer that these are not the way to do container orchestration. Okay. And here is some of the kind of a virtual network and network isolation scenarios that are addressed by ACI. In most organization, especially in large enterprises, when you are running processes, rarely they'll run in kind of run in like independently. Mostly they're connecting with existing resources, which are either in their existing virtual networks or they are on-prem. Okay, so any process. So let's say that you run an ACI, and ACI means Azure Container Instance, and it needs to process something. It has to come from somewhere. It will either come from on-prem or some of the resources in the cloud itself. So it has to have some sort of connectivity. Normally, you need virtual network connectivity, connect to resources in a virtual network. Okay, and that's where these things, play a key role. So now with ACI, what you can have is you can deploy them in a VNet, number one, and you can deploy them in a VNet in a network isolated manner, like you can lock the subnet for any egress or ingress that you don't want. So, for example, if you want to block all outbound egress to internet, you can definitely do it. And you can selectively open firewall holes to talk to other resources as needed. So all of that is now available as a part of the virtual network enablement enhancements. And of course, you can use DNS. So if you are deploying an ACI, you can attach it with a DNS, and that's how you can access that particular particular resource. And then you can control through NSG's access to those the resources that are running in ACI. Okay, so all of these things allow you to have ACIs the ability to interact with themselves as well as the resources that are available in virtual network. And if you remember, we had this discussion about ACI some time back, and we had some of the challenges where you have to create a network profile that is no longer needed. You know, they have really simplified it where you can deploy ACI in an existing subnet and go from there. Okay. So, any questions so far? Okay. So, here are some of the things that you should be aware of. And these are some of the things that um, when you are building your solution, um, you, if you're not aware of them, then your solution may not be complete or it may not work as desired. For example, first of all, you cannot place ACIs behind a load balancer. At this moment, it's not possible. And when I say load balancer, I mean Azure load balancer. I just want to be very clear. You can use App Gateway. Yes, you can use App Gateway and put ACI one or two behind it. That's definitely doable, but not with Azure Load Balancer. That capability is not there yet. Okay. Second is global VNet peering. So let's say if you have deployed an ACI in a certain subnet and you want to access that some resources in another VNet, which is globally peered. So let's say you have one VNet in East US2, another VNet in West US2, they are peered. You cannot access resources from an ACI to the other uh, globally peered VNet. That is not available. Third is you cannot assign a public IP or a DNS label to a container group deployed inside inside in a virtual network. Can only have a private IP. Okay, that is not available. I mean, nobody is stopping you from putting a app gateway in front and putting an ACI behind it and then accessing it through the app gateway. But I will really kind of a question the feasibility of that scenario. What are you trying to address? Because if you are planning to host a website on ACI, I would say please do not do that. Uh, and once again, opinion expressed in this session are strictly mine and not my employer, Microsoft. I mean, what scenario we can address by hosting a website on ACI when there are much better solutions like App Service, Azure Container Apps, Azure Static Apps, and AKS are available to address those scenarios. Okay, and we will take a look like where, uh, in my experience, large enterprises are kind of using um, ACI. So, any questions so far? Okay, just keep in mind at this moment, most of the networking features and most of the features which are kind of make ACI a very compelling solution are only available for Linux. Okay, for example, virtual network deployment. I mean, it's only available for Linux. GPU resources, file mounting, these things, so they are only available at this moment for Linux. So mostly the large enterprise that I'm working with, where they are looking to use ACI, they're also thinking of Linux only ACIs. Okay. So this is kind of some of the targeted enterprise scenario where what they're thinking of using, they're trying to provide a way for teams to run their short-term batch tasks. And this is, once again, I just wanna, when I say batch, I should say some of the short-term tasks, not batch, because then we go into the Azure batch discussion. I want to stay away from that. This is, let's say that you have a process that is running, and throughout the process, you need to run a certain task that you cannot run inside a function, or you need a full-fledged kind of environment to run it, like you want to process some files or things like that, move data from one storage account to the other, or move data from on-prem to file, and or something, and process that. And let's say that you have a container to do that. That's where you spin up that container, let it do the task, let it run while the task is running, and disappear when the task is done. Delete the container. That's it. So that's the scenario. Okay, not web application, no long running task, for short term tasks where you need access to on-prem and um, cloud on-prem and or cloud resources. Okay, and please feel free to chime in if you think that this is too restrictive, or you don't agree with it. So please feel free to open your mic and ask a questions, or post in a chat window while I prepare for the demo. So let's go into the demo. Hopefully, let me just increase the size a little bit, screen size, so everybody can see it. So what I have done is I have deployed a resource group, and let me start my virtual machine here. So I have a resource group, and I have deployed kind of a storage account, a virtual machine, a VNet in that. And in the VNet, I have multiple subnet, and I will show it to you that once I start this virtual machine. So I'm going to go in here, go into my resource group, and go into the VNet. And just keep in mind one thing, remember one thing, that when you deploy an ACI, it takes over an entire subnet. So as you can see here in this, I have three subnets. I have a PE subnet that I'm using, and by the way, this is a naming convention. I'm using it to deploy private endpoints. Then I have a VM subnet where I have the VM deployed, and then I have an ACI subnet. In this subnet, I am deploying the ACI, and as you can see here, it is delegated to Microsoft container instances. Why? Because you cannot, after you deploy ACI, you cannot deploy anything else there. Okay, only ACIs can be deployed. So just keep that in mind. Okay, let me move this here. Once I connect
Is
to
that for the
the
whole VNet, Naveed?
no, just for
Oh,
the subnet.
subnet. So,
Subnet,
okay, sorry.
yes. Yeah. So basically, that entire subnet, as you can see here, this is delegated to that. The VNet, yeah, you can deploy other things. And just keep in mind in that subnet, if you are deploying a lot of ACIs, just keep in mind that all those ACIs, you should have enough space for that. So let's say that you delegated this subnet for teams to deploy their ACI, and they're deploying their ACIs, they will spin up. You cannot control with the IP address, so they may spin up on any of the IP address within that subnet, but you have to keep the size in mind. If a lot of team are deploying, you may run out of address space there. So that's something to keep in mind, because the first four addresses in a subnet are already taken by Microsoft. They are reserved IP addresses. Okay, so that's that. Okay, so let me just connect to my VM. Sorry, I should have done it prior, but let's connect. Oh, come on. Let me just refresh it. Play status changes.
Azure
That's not
seems
good.
to be down right now, Naveed.
Oh man, that's not a good time to be. Wonderful.
All of the information you're sharing in your slides is great, though.
Okay, so maybe this is the portal. Let's shoot for the stars, and let me uh, kind of show you something here. So let me open a notepad and show a container instance and go from there, like how we are deploying that container instance. Okay. So first of all, let me increase the font size. Okay, so this is a container that I'm about to create, and I'm gonna dissect it a little bit. Okay, so this is a container instance, AZ container instance. This is the name of the container. Um, this is the resource group, pretty vanilla stuff. Then I have um, the this is the image. So you have to have an image, and that's the image. And let me show you what this image is all about. This is my V, and by the way, I love C sharp. So this is my app that I have containerized, and this is what this app does. What it app does is it creates a container with a GUID in a storage account, and that storage account is um, logged from everywhere except a private endpoint is dropped in the same VNet that we saw. So we dropped a private endpoint to the storage account. So it's connecting to the storage account. This is how I'm simulating a on-prem resource. So on-prem resource, I mean, you will have to go through the VNet. So that's think of it like it's a storage on-prem. And what I'm doing is I am creating a container and then I'm creating 10 blobs in it. That's all I'm doing. So once that is done, as you can see, it writes on console, job is done. Okay. Let's go back to this. And then this is my VNet information. Please see here where I'm deploying. This is my VNet. This is my subnet. And this is interesting. Before we look at the identity and all, restart policy never. It means that it will not restart the container because what's going to happen is once this job finishes, the container is being terminated state. Okay, uh, and it will and if you don't set the default policy is restart, so it's going to keep restarting the container and your job will run again and again and again. But if it's a one-time job, just set it to never or on failure. So if it fails, then it starts. Otherwise, it will kind of keep running your job again and again. That's very important to know when you are running these type of containers, like where you are trying to do one-time jobs. Okay. Any questions? Okay. So this is another important thing. You see, I have two identities there. This is the ACR identity. This is the identity with which I am connected to ACR. And this is the identity that I'm assigning to the container. Okay. So with containers, you can use user assigned managed identity. Okay. And with that identity, I am accessing the Azure Container Registry to get the image out. Once again, I can lock down access to the ACR. So ACR has a private endpoint that is dropped inside the VNet. Remember the PE VNet? I have dropped a private endpoint there and it is accessing that image from there. So everything all isolated. This is kind of for the enterprises where they're very security conscious. They want complete network isolation. That's the scenario where you have your ACR, private endpoint, all access blocked except private endpoint dropped in the same VNet where you are creating your ACI access through a user assigned managed identity that I have created, and I have given that identity ACR full access. Okay. I hope everybody with me so far. So for example, let's go into that ACR. So I'm going to go in here and I am going to go into the ACR first of all. And as you can see here in the networking, Second. Okay, so I think this portal is having issue. So basically, what I wanted to show you was that we are able to all access to the ACR is blocked except the private endpoint. Okay, so with that, um, any questions before we run this thing? In the console. Okay, so I'm gonna go in here and let me run this command. So what it is doing is it's trying to create a container which will, so it's this command is running and let, oh man, we cannot show you the storage account because for that we will need portal, but what it will do is it will create the storage account and it will show you, yeah, let's see how far we go. If you can't access the portal, that doesn't help. Oh, oh. Okay, so in the meantime, any questions, folks? Okay, so this job has succeeded. Let me see if I can run the Azure Storage Explorer and try to show you the storage and that information. So give me 1 second. Let me see if I can run that. Oh, 1 second. Let's see if it comes up. Okay, so to avoid dead air, any questions, comments, feedback? Have you used ACI? Any, please don't be shy. Please feel free to open your mic and ask question if you have any.
I think everybody's a little freaked out about the portal being down. We're probably concerned about our customers.
Oh, I know, man. Me too. So yeah. Okay. So I mean, so just to recap it. Okay, let's do a quick recap since we are having some kind of issues while mid demo. ACIs are a quick and easy way to spin up containers. You have an image, you spin up an ACI, you don't need a VM or AKS or any infrastructure running. ACI now supports VNET integration, so you can deploy ACIs inside a VNET and you can lock down all access to it. ACI can access resources on-prem through ExpressRoute or VPN gateway or in other parts of the VNet. All of that is available as a part of ACI VNet integration. Most of the features in terms of VNet integration and are only available with Linux. Just keep that in mind. They're not available for Windows containers. Okay. And the scenario that most enterprise that I have seen targeting are short-term tasks that need to be spun up on a VM. Now they are spinning it up on an ACI, spin an ACI, quickly do the task, and destroy the ACI. This is kind of so you have a container image just like a task that I showed you. You spin it up, task run. Once it's done, you terminate, you delete the container, and that's it. You move on. Uh, yes, you can. create a container, host a website on it, but I would really ask the kind of why you wanted to do that through ACI when there are other tools and services available like Azure App Service, Azure Container Apps, AKS to do these kind of things. One last thing, if you are doing container orchestration, please stay with tool services like AKS, Managed Kubernetes, because that's the best service to do all that. And with that, let me give one more try to see if anything is back. Seems like not. So uh, please, we have 2 more minutes. I will open. I think there's one question. See, there's something in the chat window. Let me see what that is. It's a good one. Let's try the preview portal. Thank you for the suggestion. Okay, so let me try the preview portal, guys. Let's see if that works. Come on, man. No, that's not it. Again. Okay, folks, I think this is something else because I don't understand why this is sending request to my authentication app. In any case, I will give 1 minute back. Please let me know if there are any questions, comments, or feedback. If not, thank you for joining and hope to see everybody next week for another session of Azure Power Lunch.
Thank you, Naveed. Have a great
Nice job.
weekend, sir.
Always great work. Thank you.
Thank you.